floor and did according to all that her mother instructed her. After Boaz had eaten and his heart was cheerful, he went to lie down at the end of the heap of grain, and she said, came softly, covered his feet, and lay down. Now it happened at midnight that the man was startled, turned himself, and there a woman was laying at his feet, and he said, Who are you? So she answered, I am Ruth, your maidservant. Take your maidservant under your wing, for you are close relative. Then he said, Blessed are you of the Lord, my daughter. You have shown more kindness at the end than at the beginning, that you did not go after my young men, whether poor or rich. And now, my daughter, I will do for you that all you request, for all the people of my town know that you are virtuous. Now, it's true that I am a close relative. However, there is a relative closer than I. Verse 13 and last. Stay this night, and in the morning it shall be that if he will perform the duty of a close relative, let him do it. But if he does not want to perform the duty for you, then I will perform the duty for you. As the Lord lives, lie down. Say amen to the reading of God's words. Saints, at this time, I'm handing over to Sister Mawinyo, who
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning.
It's good to see you as well. Welcome to our Bible study. We're going to three. However, before I start into the prayer meeting, oh really? Oh, hello, can I be heard? Can you hear me? Good. Sorry. Yeah, I wanted to make mention of the prayer meeting that happened on Friday night. It was truly so powerful. I want to give Sister Nicole, Sister Serena, and the adjacent prayer team, Sister Sonia. There's so many, but I really want to give thanks. And I hope Sister Angela won't mind me saying this, but Sister Angela's testimony about her daughter and Sister Cream, Sister Tracy, Sister Shamani was so powerful to me to hear about the recovery that she has made. And I think it truly showed me that God is still working miracles and he's still healing. And so I really encourage us to jump on earlier at 11 o'clock when testimonies are being given, because Sister Angela's testimony encouraged me so much. And it showed me that sometimes we look at certain diseases as the final thing, and then that's it. It showed me that God is still working, and it gave me hope where I didn't. So yeah, I just wanted to make a quick mention of that. I hope she doesn't mind me saying it. Okay, so we're going to get started into Ruth chapter 3. And Ruth chapter 3, there was a lot what went on in the scripture, so I think we should take time today as we go through it so we can understand what is going on. But before I start, I wanted to do a quick recap of where we have been in the scripture from Ruth chapter 1, Ruth chapter 2, and towards the end. So what we know is that Ruth has been widowed at a young age. She's lost her father-in-law, and she and Naomi have come back to Israel, and that they are poor, very, very poor. They are dirt poor. And so she has gone out into the fields, and she's gleaning in the fields of Bethlehem. And then we talked about gleaning being a poor act, that people who don't have any husbands or sons, this is what they do. It was sort of God's welfare system, and that they would follow behind the harvesters and they will pick up at the corners what had been dropped off. And then we find out in Ruth chapter 2 that Boaz, the owner of the field, has noticed Ruth. And so before we get into Ruth chapter 3, I just wanted to play a quick game, kind of callback on what is the character of Ruth and Boaz from what we get in Ruth chapter 2, from what we did last week. What are some key character points about Boaz or Ruth? Anyone want to answer? What is Boaz like? What is Ruth like?
Well, we get to find out that Boaz is an honourable man. Yeah. And Ruth is a gentlewoman. And she's kind and considerate to her mother-in-law.
Yeah, thank you, Sister Barnett. Anyone else, Brother Nathan?
Just to follow on from Sister Barnett, that obviously he was a wealthy man, that he had a lot of provision in terms of farming and land and staff, men and women underneath him. And at that time, he would have one of the key figures within that is the land, etc. that he owned.
Yeah, thank you. And I remember Sister Karima was pointing out last week how he was a business, how he had working under. That was something out. But yes, that is that. Sister Povey. Yes, correct. Ruth is a very hard-working person. We see that she sets out straight away to go into the glean. But yeah, so we've got Ruth as hard-working, Ruth as any other characteristics. And Boaz being. Anyone else want to add?
Yeah, can I just add? She's obviously quite thick-skinned because there's a foreigner coming into a new country, and the disappointment, coming back as a widow and coming back with her mother-in-law as well. So having to develop a thick skin in a foreign land, perhaps not speaking the language, all those things. She was quite a determined, strong character to be able to put up with all that. Yeah, amen.
Yeah, completely. Thank you for that bit out. Mr. Wallace, do you want to speak?
He's muted.
Mr. Wallace, unmute yourself. Yeah.
Are you hearing me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I look at Ruth's commitment, that it was very, very, very extraordinary. She was so committed to Naomi that even when Naomi wanted her was to go back, she said, I will never leave you. Where you go, I will go. Where you die, I will die. Your God shall be my God. Your people shall be my people. That's total commitment, and I really endorse that. Her commitment was very great towards her mother-in-law, because she didn't think Naomi was going to have another son that she would get. So staying with Naomi, she didn't have any hidden agenda. It was just personal between she and Naomi.
Yes, thank you so much, Wallace, for that. And if anyone has anything else to add, I'll move to the next point. Was that when Boaz was in the field, we talked about what were the reasons we gave why he was interested in her. If anyone wants to recall them, I remember we gave 3 solid points of Boaz's interest in Ruth. If anyone wants to remember that.
I just thought that he liked her.
Yeah. We talked about that she is a young woman. The Bible makes mention of that, and Boaz is more mature. So there was that she's attractive, which what about her? What about her position in the field? What did that suggest about her status or her position in society? Yeah. So Sister Povey right next to me said that she was, well, number one, a widow, and what she was doing suggests her being poor and needy, and it puts her in a vulnerable position. So Boaz is seeing this of her, and we were debating whether or not last week, is this a love interest he has for her, or could it be suggested that he could have been taking advantage of her? And we said that because of what has been happening in Israel's history in the time of the Judges. I think Judges is known by the last scripture, which was every man did what was right in his own eyes. However, we see that's a contradiction to who Boaz is, because what are the 3 things that Boaz offers Ruth? You'll find that in Ruth chapter 2 from verse 4 to 15. Boaz offers Ruth 3 things. Yeah, so Sister Povey said protection. Boaz offers her protection against some of the men who would have tried to sexually harass her or maybe assault her, because as Sister Clara rightly said, she is a foreigner in this land. She doesn't have the protection of a husband or sons. Anyone else?
Food.
Sister Brooks.
He offered her food and warmth.
Yeah, that's correct. Offered her food. And Nathan, will you add anything?
I was just literally reading that Sister Clara comment that community and food.
Yeah,
Sister Barnett.
Exactly. Community of being like the young women around her. If we put our mind back to like Ketubah, we can see that not that Boaz is offering her marriage, but he's offering her important things that our young woman needs, which is shelter, provision, and protection. And Boaz is offering that to Ruth. And another thing, before we get to the chapter I want to get to, is that Boaz ensures that the grain or the barley falls in her path. So he doesn't do it in a way that he directly throws the barley at her, like, here, take it. But he does it in a secretive way, which reading the text, to preserve her maybe pride, to ensure that she's not feeling like she's just been given this stuff, but she's able to pick up extra barley because he arranges for it to be given. So we see him as someone that looks after her, that wants to provide for her, which is important in application for our lives, to be with someone that desires to provide. Right, so now I'm going to get to the verse that I really want to get to, which is Ruth chapter 2 from verse 19, so we can continue to verse chapter 3. So in Ruth chapter 2, verse 19, Ruth has just come back and she's picked up a lot of barley, more than that is normal. And so Naomi, her mother-in-law, is very shocked. She says, and her mother-in-law said to her, "Where have you gleaned today, and where did you work? Blessed be the one who took notice of." So she told her mother-in-law with whom she had worked and said, "The man's name with whom I work today is Boaz." What do we get from that verse in terms of Naomi and action? Anyone want to answer? Is Naomi shocked about how much she's picked up? Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. Right. So what Sister Povey said, exactly what she said, that she's a foreigner and she's been able to pick up so much. And remember, it's the leftovers she's picking up. And so you see in her question, where have you gleaned today? Where did you work? Her shock is evidenced by the question she's asking. And then she says, "Blessed be the one."
Sister Mourinho, could it be quality as well?
Yeah, I wouldn't even be.
I was thinking more, I wasn't even thinking about the foreigner bit. Thank you, Sister Povey. I was thinking more about the quality and quantity of what she's picked up that has shown. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I agree with you, sister. And I think we have to remember that Boaz was making the barley drop in her path. She's been able, as a foreigner, as someone that's left over in society from being a widow, she's been able to pick up the best in her position because of how Boaz has arranged. And then, so then she makes mention that the man who she worked for today is Boaz. Then Naomi responds to her saying, "Blessed be who has not forsaken his kindness to the living and the dead." This is such a key, because what has Naomi's attitude been? Come back to Beth. Anyone wants to talk about that?
That she's basically like, God has basically forsaken her, or God has left her. So in this moment, she's like, it's pretty much the fact that she sees, as I said, she basically recognizes her sons in this moment to say that, blessed be those, like, for the future, for her and for her sons as well. Like, it's the walk that she's gone through before and the walk that she's going to moving forward. And she recognizes both things. She recognizes that God is in control in this moment here.
Exactly.
She isn't forsaken.
Exactly. And like Karima said, I want to point out, because this is the first time, at least again, where we hear Naomi praising God. And remember, as Galaxy 10 has said in the chat, Ruth was very bitter, and she'd become twisted. She said, Mara, because the Almighty has dealt harshly with me. However, we see through Ruth and through her association with Ruth, she's praising the Lord now. And I make this point to say that sometimes in our lives, how do our lives allow people to praise God and see God when they've been turned away? Do you know what I mean? When people have been when people have gone through trials, do our life and our association allow people to praise God? Because we see it's through Naomi. And remember, it's through Ruth, sorry. Ruth is a foreigner. Ruth has just Ruth has decided to take on Yahweh as her God. And it is through this foreigner that Naomi remembers that God is still blessing her and thanks God because of that. And I think that's a very key point. And she also said, says the living and the dead. What do you think the dead refers to as the dead?
Sister Barnett said it. Yeah, husbands, as in her sons, and then her husband as well.
Yeah, exactly. So her husband, so she's remembering that God hasn't forgotten her. And so this is a key point. So Naomi said to Ruth, this man is a relation of ours, one of our close relatives. What does she mean when she says relative? Because this is an important part in Ruth chapter 3 going forward. And it's the reason why they do the things they do. But what does it mean when she says a relative?
You're talking about the connection between the family, like Ruth's father-in-law was related to Boaz. Just talking about the connection, that there is a connection there.
That's a part of it, baby. Yeah. 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 So Sister Povey and Sister Barney.
Can you just summarize? Would you mind just summarizing what your mum said? I don't know if you were going to. Just it's hard to hear.
Okay. Is it hard to? I'm really shouting. But so Sister Povey mentioned the Kingsman Redeemer, and it's alluding to the point Sister Barnett made as well about a family connection. What you would have in ancient Israel is that in the family there would be a specific person or someone who is responsible for the family, and this Kingsman Redeemer included responsibilities such as buying back a family member that had been sold into slavery, marrying the widow or someone in the family. And if you married the widow, their sons would be the deceased husband. It would be their son. So it's keeping land, keeping ownership, keeping family together. They would also retrieve property. If property has been lost, that is their responsibility. And keep the name as well. And so what we see is that Naomi is extremely excited because right now she has someone that can basically save them from everything that they've been going through, from the suffering, from the loss of their husbands, their property, their well-being. This Kingsman Redeemer is able to fulfill that purpose. And Boaz in their family is the Kingsman Redeemer. Does that make sense? Does everyone understand it? Because I know it's a bit of a different content topic. Okay, cool. So Naomi is so excited, and she truly starts to see how God is literally ordering and moving in this instant. Now, this is when we can start to see if there's an agenda or is there a plot forming. Because Ruth says, he also said to me, you shall stay close by my young men until they have finished all my harvest. So Ruth is relaying to Naomi what has happened. And oh yes, Galaxy 10. It could be suggested that it's a meal ticket. Anyone else want to talk?
Would you mind just going over the Kingsman Redeemer concept again? I think could Enos speak up?
Oh yes, no worries. So the Kingsman Redeemer. Am I talking loud enough? By the way, I'm really. The Kingsman Redeemer was appointed in the family in ancient Israel, and they had responsibility over ensuring that their lives of their relatives were well. So, for example, if a relative had been sold into slavery, it was the kinsman redeemer responsibility to buy them back from slavery. If one of their relatives had become widowed, it was their responsibility to marry the widow and provide her with children to keep on the family name. I'll put the scriptures later in the chat because there's scriptures to pick up. Or if they had lost property, it was the kinsman redeemer's responsibility to buy back that property for the family, because land was especially important in ancient Israel in the tribes. So Boaz is their family, Elimelech's kinsman redeemer. And now Naomi is very excited because she's like, yes, this person is here to redeem us. I hope that is clearer. Sorry, I will slow down. I am so...
Sorry, could I ask you a question, Sister Mourinho?
Tracy?
Why is it then when she returned, she didn't seek him out, look for him to actually put herself in a better position? Was it because she was so downcast because of her loss?
You know what, Sister Tracy? That is a really good question. I would say that probably held her back, because it was only through Ruth that Naomi was able to see the connection and think about that, oh wait, this is our only when Ruth initiated that contact. And I think, as we mentioned, Naomi is a very bitter person at this point, and I don't think she past her suffering and her despair. And it's only through God that Naomi is able to see God working and see that, wait, there is someone that can redeem. You know, he was a king at that point. Oh, Sister Stephanie,
could it also be linked with the fact that she saw Ruth actually going out to? Could it be a factor of several things, like seeing her going out as well to glean and to just trying to make them a part of the society again?
Yeah, I think that could be a possibility. But I think she didn't see hope in her situation until it was like when Ruth said Boaz, it made her remember something. It just made her remember that, wait, this is an appointed man that is supposed to redeem her. I think it relates to a situation where, when you're see the options in front of you, you know, you just see darkness. And I think that was Naomi's state. However, Ruth
that just
is
brought
a light.
back to her remembrance, kind of a thing. Okay, thank you.
Right.
This is Stephanie.
No, go on. Go to Stephanie first. That's fine. I'll come after.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if you had a question you want to ask or a statement.
Hi. Sorry. Can you see me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I just wondered if maybe she didn't know that, you know, she's been away for so long, or it could have been that she didn't remember, because again, she's been away for so long. She may not have had to use him in that manner in the past, or call on him in that manner in the past. So she may have just forgotten that he was in that position, or even who he was. Because if you've never had to, you know, use him or get help from him, you may have not even known who he was. Because as she said, he was a distant relative, not someone that she's necessarily that aware of.
I would say that she did know Sister Steph, because as soon as she heard the name, she knew straight away that he was the king's redeemer. Mm-hmm. So she knew who it was, because it's appointed in the family, and she was part of a limited family, and he was the closest relative. So I think why she didn't reach out, which is a good question, I would say shame and the low profile, that it held her back in the beginning, and I would say she forgot because of the pain. That would be my. If anyone wants to challenge it, add to it.
Yeah, I have something to say.
I think she felt ashamed. Sorry. Go ahead, Nathan.
So I was just going to say, I think it's twofold, because everything Mourinho's recounted in terms of the hierarchy and protocol, if certain situations arise, if the husband dies, and then there's obviously a member of the family in the community that's there to obviously redeem the family and help them out of a mess, or someone gets sold into slavery, etc. There's protocol that she's following, and you got to remember, she's wise in her years as well. So in the sense that she would be the person that Boaz would come to marry, it would have to potentially be somebody younger, i.e. Ruth, because then that would be a better match. So from her point of view, I don't know if it was tactical or whether it was a mixture of the shame or both. Because at the end of the day, she could have gone straight to Boaz if she knew in terms of the hierarchy and protocol and said A, B, C, D, but she didn't. She chose another way in allowing Ruth to go out and allowing Ruth to establish herself in the people and the community, and then in a way it happened naturally.
Can I add to that, Nathan?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so just going back a little bit, when Ruth first came back with obviously the good amount of barley that she collected, I don't know, the way it read to me sounds like it was different to the way it read to everybody else. To me, it almost sounded like Naomi wasn't shocked. Not that she wasn't shocked, but she knew straight away that this hadn't just been a good day. You know, she just managed to get more barley that day. It read as if she knew from the amount that Ruth had gotten, that someone had either liked her and decided to help her, like covertly, or like knowingly. Like it sounds like as soon as she saw that there was that much barley, she knew that someone had helped her. So I don't know if that could have potentially triggered her memory of Boaz, but it definitely sounds like, not that she didn't know who he was, but I think it was just a situation where she forgot, because if this was a known thing of a kinsman, a known thing that most families had, I understand, I definitely get the whole idea about, being ashamed and probably not even want to reach out for that kind of help because you don't think it's going to be there. But the concept didn't come up at all in the latter parts of the prior parts of the text. So it made me think that Ruth coming back with so much barley probably triggered her memory. So yes, she probably did know, but I don't think she remembered.
Could I say something?
Hello.
Could I say something?
Hello.
No,
Sister Angela.
Yeah, I'm just saying, if we remember, Boaz went to another close relative, and that close relative gave Boaz the permission for him to become the kinsman redeemer. So there was somebody before Boaz. So maybe Naomi was surprised that it was actually Boaz and not the other family member.
That makes sense, Sister Angela. It definitely doesn't seem as if she knew it was him. I really don't feel like she knew it was him. So
yeah, she didn't expect it to be him.
Yeah.
Can I say something, please?
Yeah, go, Sister Wallace.
Yeah, I don't think the answer is really because he didn't know or because she didn't know him or she knew him. I think the problem is we have to remember the state of mind that Naomi went back with. She was a very bitter person. And whenever you're very bitter, bitterness can blind you from hope, from the future, from even the things you knew before. And it would take time for her to get over that state of mind. It has to do with the state of the mind, the bitterness. When you are bitter, it's as if you are under a control from a spirit of bitterness. So the things that are ahead of you, you cannot really focus and see them. Bitterness, it's like a grieving process where your eyes are being blinded by grief. And until over time, it takes time for that grief, for that bitterness to subside, then you can begin to see clearly and to adhere to the things that are ahead of you. So I think whether she knew him before or she didn't know he was the kinsman redeemer, the problem with Naomi at the time, she was a very bitter person.
Yeah. Yes, she was. And she also felt ashamed because her husband took them away to make better for themselves. And they came back with less than they went with. So she felt some shame as well. So she was sort of keeping herself undercover, if you like, because if you feel shame, then you don't want to push yourself forward for everybody to look at you. You just keep yourself aloof.
Yeah. So
thank you, Sister Wallace.
You're welcome. Yeah.
I agree.
That explains it. Thank you. Thank you.
You're
thank
welcome,
you.
Tracy. Yeah.
Okay. So if we were to move on to 22, So then Naomi said to Ruth, her daughter-in-law, "It is good, my daughter, that you go out with his young women and that people do not meet you in any other field." So then Ruth says, so she stayed close by the young women of Boaz to glean until the end of barley harvest and wheat harvest, and she go out with her mother-in-law. So what is happening from verses 21 to 22?
She's being obedient, but I think she's also taking on board what is like, I guess, from what Sister Wallace has just said, she's had a wake-up moment.
Yeah.
So she's remembering how to help Ruth to keep herself safe. And she's guiding her more consciously now. And I think also she's preparing her, so she's herself thinking about different steps in order for her to have a better life.
Mm-hmm.
So I think she's preparing her now, like Karima just said, opportunities. So I think now she's now thinking more strategically in terms of how to help them to have a better life.
I would say we see this the revolution of Naomi, or the revival of Naomi, because from this point, when she starts to see that there's a hope in Boaz, she changes and she starts planning and she starts having strategy, and it's like her personality and the bitterness slowly starts to come away. When we get into Ruth chapter 3 and we see what she says, Sister Carrie asked, why is she in grief? Just some background, Sister Carrie. Naomi had lost her husband and her 2 sons when she had traveled to Moab. So she came back feeling very bitter, feeling as though the Almighty has dealt harshly against her. I agree in part to Galaxy 10 that there's an agenda, and I agree with Nathan and Sister Cream of game plans. And we will see this in Ruth chapter. Okay, so in Ruth chapter 3, Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to her, "My daughter, shall I not seek security for you, that it may be well with you?" What does security mean here? Sister Kobe said provision. Marriage, exactly. Sister Barnett is right. The word security refers to marriage, that should I not seek a marriage for you? And we have to remember what society we are living in. The only way a woman had mobility or protection or status or even a livelihood, this was ensured through marriage. Right. Okay. So Naomi's asking, shall I not seek security that it may be well with you? Now, is Naomi's intention only for Ruth, or is it for
Sorry, Marinia, can I quickly make a point? First of all, can I ask a question? Is Galaxy 10 pasta? I believe it is, you know.
If it is, I wouldn't be surprised.
I really believe it's pasta.
I generally don't know.
I think it's pasta. Anyways, this whole point
I'm not sure it is, because he's active on his phone.
Exactly. It might be pasta.
No, because saying his phone.
No, it's funny. I think it's absolutely hilarious. Question. No, you know, someone was like, "Oh, game plan." At the end of the chapter, people were saying, "Okay, Naomi's being a lot more intentional about the way that she's guiding Ruth, etc." And I do believe that that's the case, but I wonder if we can look at it from another viewpoint, in the sense that rather than it being like, "Okay, cool, game plan, let's jump on this," I think it's almost like both Naomi and Ruth are seeing it as, "Oh my gosh, God is showing me grace." Like almost like an extension of that, like, "Oh my gosh, look at how kind God is that he's allowed me to stumble into such a gracious position. Let us notice this and utilize this." You know what I mean?
I agree. Do you know, I agree of God putting things in your path and you take initiative to go forward with it. I would say that Naomi is a matchmaker. That's what I'm going to say. But anyway, back to my question. I don't know if you want to answer that, Sister Kadeen. Is Naomi thinking of just Ruth, or is she thinking of Ruth and herself when she says security for you?
I think she is thinking, I think it's like a 70-30. And I'm not trying to be kind. I'm being like really, I'm not trying to be kind or politically correct. I think she's 70% thinking about Ruth, because I can imagine if I was Naomi, I would have a level of guilt thinking, this girl's followed me here. I have a responsibility to try my best to make sure that she's okay. Because if we go back, Ruth did try to separate her. No, Naomi tried to separate herself from Ruth, saying, look, you're not going to have any good luck following me. Go and do your thing and I'm going to do mine. So I think 70% is like, yes, I want Ruth to actually find someone to take care of her, because I think that might alleviate maybe some of the guilt or pressure she has on herself, like, oh my gosh, this girl's followed me to nothingness, if that makes sense. But as a result of that, of course, she'll be taken care of. But I don't think, you know, you watch those films, yeah, and the mother-in-law wants the big house, wants the da-da-da-da-da. I don't think she's got that, like, that kind of mentality. I think she just knows part and part with Ruth being looked after means that she will also have a roof over her head and food to eat. But I think Ruth is her priority.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
You want to explain more, Sister? Sister Barnett, sorry. Do you want to
Yeah, I think that Naomi was looking out for Ruth primarily, and she knows that if Ruth was all right, then she would be all right too.
Yeah.
Basically.
The Kobe wants to say something.
Naomi said, the Lord bless you. Them goodbye. Just leave. Naomi nice.
Yeah, I completely agree. Sister Povey was making an excellent point. She said it when you go back to Ruth chapter 1 verse 9. She said, the Lord grant you that you might find rest, each in the house of her husband. And so we kind of we see this circle, and that Naomi's returning to the subject of rest and wanting Naomi, because there's only Naomi here with her, to find a husband. And that God has worked, enabled that this is happening. So then she says, now Boaz, whose young women you were with, is he not our relative? In fact, he is winnowing barley tonight at the threshing floor. Now, this is Naomi having strategy, which is important. And as a woman, it's important to have strategy and be smart. Naomi is a very smart woman. I'm going to say that. And so she says, so she's making the link. Boaz, whose young woman you were with, is he not our relative? And when he's saying, is he not our relative? What does he mean? What is she referring to when she said, is he not our relative? Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. So Sister Povey just said, when she says, is he not our relative? Naomi is referring to the fact that Boaz is their kinsman redeemer. So she's just stating the obvious, and she's saying, we are widows, you are a widow, you are young. He has a role to fulfill, because she knows that, because she understands the custom. She understands it. So then she says, and remember, Ruth has been in the field for a while, because now we're just reaching the point of harvest. And I'm not a farmer, but I imagine it takes a few months before, you have harvest ready. So it's not just it's over time she is seen. I would agree she is leveraging, and there's nothing wrong with it, because Boaz has a role and responsibility. So then she points to the fact that, is he winnowing tonight at the threshing floor? What does the threshing floor mean? Does anyone remember when we talked about it? What is the threshing floor?
It's where separate the wheat from the chaff? It's where you beat out no, that's something different. It's where you beat out the barley, basically, to get your grain. So the threshing floor, because I remember it's referred to, I think, when in Judges with Gideon, when he was beating out barley in the wine press to hide. So yeah, he was I think it's basically, yeah, you're right. There we go, Sister Stephanie. You got the words for me. Separating the trash from the grain. So it's basically where you would
yeah
go ahead.
And it was located in a public space, And so you would actually have the animals, I was researching about it, would trample the husk in order to separate the grain. Then the mixture would be tossed in the air so the wind will blow away the chaff. And so Boaz will stay in the night to guard his grain from thieves, because we have to remember, we're in the time of Judges. There's like anarchy going around in Israel. So Boaz is going to be at the threshing floor. So now we see what Naomi tells Ruth to do. Knowing his location, knowing the role he has to fulfill, she says, therefore, wash yourself, anoint yourself, and put on your best garment and go down to the threshing floor. What do we think about this verse? Galaxy 10, if you would like to speak, you can unmute your mic.
Obviously, Naomi's been doing her own investigating, hasn't she? Because she knew exactly where Boaz would be. To tell Ruth to go, she knew where Boaz would be. So she's not quietly sitting at home minding her own business. She's sort of making her inquiries and seeing what's going on. And it was clear to her, knew where Boaz was going to be. Where to tell Ruth to go to.
How was she sending Ruth out as, in terms of the script happening?
Just make yourself glamorous and to attract this man.
I can accept that. She is teaching Ruth, we could say, the art of seduction.
Yeah.
What we see is happening. Now, is there anything? Oh, Sister Poby wants to speak. Yeah.
I guess also.
Yes. Yes.
Around.
I agree with Sister Povey. We have to remember that Ruth is a widow. What they would wear during, if you're a widow, you normally wear garbs that show that you're a widow, highlight her status. And Naomi is saying to her, take off this widow dressing that you are wearing and put on your best garment so you can seduce this man. And we see Naomi coaching her. Nathan, yeah?
Yeah, so let me get this straight. So farming work is not exactly clean, so she would have put on her best garments to go and pick up grain, right? And secondly,
she didn't have her best garments to pick up grain.
But I'm just saying, in a sense. Sorry, go on.
Because remember, it's saying wash yourself. So we have this idea that she's been in the field, she hasn't been her cleanest state because she's doing that work. And so it's telling her to wash herself, take off your widow clothes or the clothes you wear to go in the field and put on your best garment. So be visually attractive. I can admit the Bible.
True, but at the same time, back then the culture, the women wouldn't have had their hair out, it would have been concealed, etc. It would have been in formal clothing in order for her to, like, quote unquote, up there. You know? Like, so.
But at the same time, we have to remember there's no men to go on behalf of Naomi. You know, we've talked about Ketubah, we've talked about it extensively, about man seeing man, but these are two women on their own. There is no one to go on behalf of them. They truly have to use, and this is why I admire them and they're my queens, they truly are using their minds and their strategies in order to enable Boaz to fulfill his role and for them to secure their future, which is important because family is very big in Israel.
Hi, it's Kadeen here. I agree with you. I think you're right. I think it's brave of them to take on a role that a man would have had to take on their behalf, that they don't have someone to do that for them. So I think it's actually really brave of them. And I think it also shows that their level of hope and expectation for themselves has risen, because they're not saying, okay, I'm just going to settle to what widows have to settle with, which is gleaning from the outskirts. This is now my place in society. Like you said, they're kind of taking advantage of that thing of, okay, here's God's grace giving me opportunity. Let me jump into that. But I disagree with you on the point of, oh no, she would have been in the fields. She was dirty, let's wash. Because to anoint herself in this context here is talking about perfume.
Oh yeah, that's what I mean. Like
it's talking about, like, it's not like, oh, make yourself clean and acceptable. It's, as my dad would say, tart up yourself. Like, put on some, pop little powder on your face, bring out the Coco Chanel and ensure that you are noticed when Boaz sees you the next time. So that's the only part that I disagree with you on that. Yeah.
No, I'm not trying to say she's dirty with grime or something, but I was saying what you would feel. So like, let there be a change. That's what I agree with you on your point. Wallace, do you want to say something?
Yes, I think I agree with Kadina as well, because if you look back in the time of Esther, when she had to spend about a year in the harem, it was to prepare both her inner self, her heart, and her outward appearance. And Naomi would have been dealing with Ruth as her own daughter. And Naomi knew that for her to go in the presence of Boaz, she has to prepare herself. I think it was all to do with preparation.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah, it's preparation. She was preparing her because might be Ruth had forgotten the way when she was married and what she had been through and how much she had prepared herself, because losing her husband as well and the failure to lose her husband, might be she didn't even want to go back there. But Naomi is encouraging her. It's just like a mother would encourage her own daughter to prepare yourself and look after yourself, put on your best clothing, anoint yourself, put on your best perfume and go, because it's just like, as I said, with Esther, when Esther went into the harem, when the king saw her, he saw exactly what he was looking for. So Naomi would have known what Boaz would be looking for. So he would be preparing Ruth to say, this is how you must look after yourself before you get into the presence of this man.
Yeah, I agree with you. We see the way men are to feel something, which I think is important in terms of Nathan's point of fellowship. Sister Angela, you want to speak?
I wanted to say maybe the way in which I agree with everything that's been said, but also to how Ruth would have prepared herself prior for her first marriage, or for meeting, whether it was Chilean or Marlon, would have been different to how she needs now to prepare for Boaz.
Mm-hmm.
Because the culture, she may not have been fully, she may not had fully understood. So it was important for Naomi to direct her as to what to do and how to do it, because she's now in a different culture, so to speak.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does. I agree that Naomi is coaching her in the best way to appeal to Boaz. Because at the same time, we have to remember, Naomi knows Boaz. It's not that she didn't know who he was. It just hadn't come to her mind in her bitterness, in her grief, as Sister Wallace had mentioned. But Naomi knows who Boaz is. This is her husband's brother, her dead husband's brother. So she is actually telling Ruth the best way to get this man to give you a marriage proposal. She is coaching Ruth how to do this. Does anyone have any points they want to add before a Birkin bag? If Boaz has the money for a Birkin bag, yes. Right.
Okay. I think you said, does anyone want to make points? Yeah. I think you're right, coaching her, because remember, she's a Moabite woman, and Elimelech and the family were in Moab for a considerable period of time. I can't remember how long exactly. So they would have gotten, they continued on with their faith by the sounds of it, but they would have, I think, I don't have any biblical foundation on this, but I think they would have kind of embraced the Moabite culture to a certain degree. And so the way that Ruth and the other one, I can't remember the other one's name, would have caught the attention of Naomi's sons would have been the Moabite way. Does that make sense? So I think Naomi is definitely coaching her, because Ruth wouldn't know the custom in terms of, Pastor's funny, I don't think the process of tarting up is different. She would have known the custom in terms of how to make it abundantly clear that this is what this is what you are suggesting you would want from a particular man, if that makes sense. I think it was very much cultural guidance as to how to make your intentions known as a woman.
I think potentially, I agree with that to an extent, but I also think, I can't remember who made the point, either Sister Goddess or someone else, about how Ruth may her mind not have even been that to get a man, like, do you know when you have to do a mind shift sometimes? Her mind probably even shifted, and Naomi is coaching her and guiding her to this, it ain't past the line.
And who's to say that she's still not heartbroken? Like how long has her husband been gone? Do you know what I mean? Like maybe she's not ready. Like she might need to be provided for, yes, but who's to say she's ready?
That is a point. And but the thing is, I want us to remember is that Ruth has seen Boaz's character as well. Naomi's not just pimping her out, in case someone wants to think that, but she has also had her own chance and experience of getting to know Boaz. But anyway, I want to move us on to the next point because there's more stuff that goes down. And Naomi tells her to go to the threshing floor, but do not make yourself known to the man until he has finished eating and drinking. Okay, the threshing floor. The first point to make there is that women weren't supposed to go there. So Ruth is taking a very big risk at this point. Now, what do we think of the following verses of do not make yourself known until he has finished eating and drinking? Let us be honest.
This is where I agree with Galaxy 10 /pastor. He basically said, what's it called? Not Ruth. Naomi basically said, let him eat and get a little bit lit. Yes. Yeah. Yes. And then when he's a little bit undercover, inebriated, and his inhibitions have been removed, that is when you should present yourself. That bit was a bit, yeah, that bit's wild.
Yeah. I struggle to make application points for our culture. One thing I would say is just have strategy. I think it's important for all women to have strategy. But I think the biggest point we take away from verse 3 is that they are taking a risk. It is a risk that they are taking. But it's okay. So the Povey doesn't think Boaz was drunk.
It's a night of
harvest.
Harvest. Because there are thieves around.
True.
You need to watch over those.
You made a point.
Those harvests, and no one will come to them. So obviously, the part need to go. No.
Agreed.
He just had tried things. Had a drink.
You know what? I actually completely agree with Sister Posey. So we have to remember it is harvest time, and maybe we're using reference from Judges when Judah got drunk and he did the stuff with the prostitute. But Boaz is staying at the threshing field because of the climate in Israel. I don't believe he was a man that would have got drunk, so his harvest could have been robbed. He's sleeping by where the harvest is to ensure that it's protected. So while he may have ate and have gotten a bit merry, I think he still would have been alert.
I had the wine party. He just make
okay, I agree, not drink, but I think the point is Boaz was merry. Let's say merry. You can still be alert and be merry, more than tipsy. I just agree with you, Galaxy 10. You'd have to unmute for us to have this conversation. But I disagree because he's supposed to be watching. He's at the threshing floor because of the thieves in Israel. There is no way that this responsible businessman who is guarding his harvest is gonna get drunk. But go to Karima.
No, I think you can't.
Karima?
Yeah, can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you, guys.
Okay, I think you can't really. I'm not disagreeing with you, but in a sense, like you can't really disregard how men are and how they are within their culture. Remember that women are not about, so they're acting. They're going to be men at the end of the day. They're going to have fun. They're going to drink. they're gonna do all these things. I think if they've been doing this for years, at the end of the day, they kind of know, you know, to what extent they can drink, if that makes sense. So for them, it's let's go to the pub kind of a thing. Like, let's have fun. It's our moment. So I think he is a businessman, but at the same time, he's still a man. They're still gonna have fun. They're still gonna drink. They're still gonna have their party time, if that makes sense. Just let's let our head and let's have our Friday feeling as a man.
True, and I agree with you to a point, but I think, okay, I guess we're trying to say, was he sloppy drunk or was he just a bit buzzed? I'm not denying that he was buzzed and he was drinking and they were partying, but I go against that he was drunk and didn't have his wits or inhibitions around him. Because of the climate in Israel, we have to remember that he is guarding his harvest. So whilst he's celebrating party, he's still being watchful. So I guess the debate would be how drunk was Boaz, if you want that to be the debate.
I think in a sense, right? Sorry, Nathan. Yeah, there is that. Okay, he's a businessman, but then at the same time, for him, like, we've been doing this for years. It's their tradition to go down and, you know, to drink and to have fun. Hence why Naomi says, like, you know, don't do it. There's a certain point in which you need to approach him. It's not, go and approach him while he's drinking. You need to get to a point where he's let his guard down, kind of a thing. He's okay. He's going to be approachable at this point. So then, make your move. So obviously, if you're doing it before, he's going to probably be like, well, what are you doing here, kind of a thing. Like, why are you here? So at this point, Naomi's like, rah, like, they're going to be having fun. They're doing their thing. His guard's down. Remember, food and whatnot, food and drink allows, you know, people in general to be able to communicate more. For example, if we all go out for drinks or we go out, you know, to eat and whatnot, you're able to communicate, able to talk to people more. Your guard is down. I think obviously highlighting the thing about food and community and connection in this moment. So Naomi 100% knows at what point she needs Ruth needs to then make her move.
Can I make a point?
I was
Okay.
trying to make my point.
Stephanie and Sister Willis, if that's okay. Nathan, sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. So yeah, I was gonna say, like, you gotta remember, Boaz is a very, very wealthy man, right? In that season. And just because his personal guard was down doesn't mean that his workers weren't guarding the field, guarding the harvest.
100%.
If he's of hierarchy, you got to remember the boss man don't do the small work. That don't happen. He would have been in his own quarters and doing his own thing, and the rest of them would have been looking after the crops. So I think there's a chance that he could have been enjoying himself. Therefore, that's when the tactical awareness got played out. And made them move.
Nathan, I 100% agree with that, because you're thinking to yourself, like, at this point, you have to think of a businessman. Why am I going to be doing little man's work? Like, does that make sense? Like, why do I have to? Why would I have to?
Remember,
we can't hear you, Mo.
Sorry, my internet's cutting out. My internet.
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I was going to say, where does the Bible says that he's at the threshing field. So whilst I'm sure there would have been a banquet hall where they go and get married, he's at the place where God. The Bible shows he's on the field. But Sister Wallace, make your point. My internet's cutting. Go, Steph.
Steph on mute.
Hello?
Stephanie on mute.
Are you hearing me now?
Yes.
Sorry, guys. Is that better? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think Sister Wallace was before Sister Stephanie, no?
Are you hearing me now?
Yes, Sister Wallace.
Yes, this is to do, I think the bit where we really talking about, it's to do with connection and relationship. And this was a word of wisdom that Naomi was giving to Ruth. She was preparing her to say to her, don't go when he is eating and drinking, because then there would be some distraction there. Go when you will be attracted to him. You will be the only one he will be able to see. That's connection. That's relationship. That's timing. Make sure he finish eating and drinking, because when someone is eating and drinking, they won't have any time for you. So that was a word of wisdom that Naomi was giving to Ruth.
Sister Stephanie, I'm gonna hand over to Pastor, by the way, guys. Thank you for participating.
What did you ask for me, Mo?
Make your point, Sister Steph.
Okay. I'm pretty sure Pastor muted me because we all know Pastor's Galaxy 10 right now. But anyway, I was basically saying that I don't necessarily agree. I agree they sent that Ruth sent her there, Naomi sent Ruth there with the idea in mind to catch his attention. I do agree with that. But I don't agree that the plan was to wait for him to be completely drunk and to therefore sort of take advantage that way. And even if it was, it's a pretty silly plan, because what we know for a fact is that Boaz is successful, and successful businessmen, like successful business people, always keep themselves sober at the times when they're conducting business. If he's at the threshing floor, it's to oversee his harvest, is to oversee what's happening and what's going on. He would make absolutely sure he's in his right mind to make sure that no one takes advantage, no one steals the crop, no one does anything underhandedly. I'm sure there were situations in those times where even your own workers would try and take a bit more grain for themselves. So in order to make sure these things don't happen, you would have to be very much in your right mind. He may have had something to eat and something to drink, but I highly doubt he was so drunk that he wouldn't have been able to see what Ruth had kind of come to do, or that he wouldn't have realized that she is trying to get his attention. Just from the very fact that he's a businessman, it doesn't make sense to try and make out that he was drunk. It just wouldn't match up with his character. All that we've seen about Boaz so far, everything that they've described Boaz as is someone that is of sound mind, of good judgment, is sober, doesn't, other men that might have been the norm for other men, but I highly doubt that would be the norm for this man. I think you can't put successful businessmen in the same category as just your everyday average guy. Your everyday average guy, yeah, might be drinking, but I don't think this man, being as successful as he was, with all the descriptive text that we've learned already about him, would be a man that would then go and get drunk in such a significant time as collecting harvest. So I don't agree with he was drunk. He may have had a drink, but that is not even close to the same as being drunk. And I think he would have been very aware of the fact that Naomi came back all of a sudden looking a lot nicer, smelling a lot nicer, doing her hair, maybe doing her makeup. He would have been aware of that fact. So I think he's a lot more sober in his judgment than we're giving him credit for.
But it was, before I give over to Pastor,
someone needs some Cavonia.
Oh my God. One point before I hand over to Pastor, because my internet's been cutting. Samuel, my brother in the room, he made a good point that women wouldn't have been allowed into where the men were eating and drinking as a point of why she came tonight, which I thought is a very good point about the culture. And I think I agree in part to say drinking was part of their culture. They're probably like the Russians. But my point is, he had his wits about him. But Pastor Samuel, you can take over. Thank you guys for participating in my session. And yeah, I'll Pastor saying I'm naive. I read a lot of historical context about who Boaz was and his honor. Chapter 2 starts about what man he is.
One second. Can you stop accusing me of being Galaxy 10, please? Hello, Galaxy 10. I agree with much of your points. 100%. I agree with you. So just welcome my visitors. Why are you accusing people of being pastor? It's Galaxy 10. It's a different. My God. So welcome, Galaxy 10. You made it a bit enjoyable today. So thank you, Mourinho, for. So you're right. So I got to kind of catch up now. I got 2 minutes. So Mourinho basically just let me meet Mourinho. Take away a privilege. Take away a privilege of being co-host.
Did a good job, Mo.
Okay, so Mourinho was right that Naomi was using strategy and tactics to trick Boaz because he was rich. And Naomi was bitter, and all she could see was her need was going to be dealt with and supplied, and so she's using a tactic to take over. To use what's her name, Ruth, to get a secure future at the end of the day. And what else? I've only got 2 minutes left, so I don't really go into too much. What verse did you lot do? What verse were you up to? Has everyone gone black? What verse have you got up to? No one talking. What verse did you get up to?
Verse 4.
Okay. No, verse 4. Okay, nice. We haven't got enough time to go into all the nuances. So at the end of the day, Sister Mourinho was right. Naomi did plan and scheme against Boaz. And she went into partnership with Ruth to get Boaz's attention. And in verse 1 tells you, my daughter, shall I not seek security for you? So there's something deliberate and intentional. Naomi's being very deliberate and intentional to get what does Boaz have that Naomi wants and Ruth want? It begins with money. So that's money. Exactly. It's money. So Naomi is being deliberate and intentional about what she wants. She wants a secure future. Now the question is there something wrong with wanting a secure future? It depends how you answer that question. And then it says so Naomi wants a secure future for Ruth. That's not bad in itself. But let's see how she goes about doing it now. Verse 2. Now Boaz, whose young woman you were with, is he not our relative? What's happening there? That looks like justification for bad behavior, if that makes sense. So Mourinho was right. So Naomi tricks Ruth into believing the justification for bad behavior. Because you see, okay, now Boaz, whose young woman you are with, is he not our relative? Is that not justification for bad behavior?
I think they.
Let me ask Galaxy 10. Galaxy 10 will give me the answer.
How Galaxy 10's gonna respond?
The Galaxy 10 just agrees. Guy and then so there you go. So you got the idea that
I don't think it was I don't think it's more bad behavior. I think it's more like probably recognize, because obviously they would have learned about the culture, if that makes sense. You would have learned about who a kinsman is. So in that bit, she's probably recognizing, the teachings from Naomi and that she's learned over the years.
Bible study, you have to take the money from Boaz.
of who Boaz or who the kinsman is. So understanding, okay, relative, okay, it's that blah 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 blah.
But hold on, one second. So you're saying that Naomi gave Boaz Bible study lesson and how to run game on what's his name?
No, I'm saying Ruth in that moment. So when Ruth says, "Isn't that the relative?" At that point, Ruth is like, "Right, is that the teaching that you taught me over the years? This is that person." That can help us, that can basically save us in this moment.
Okay, I can live with that. I can live with that. So you're saying it's like in fact he is winnowing barley tonight at the threshing floor, and so Naomi's got information. Naomi sent out her spies to get information. Knows where he's going to be. So that tells you, because Naomi don't really leave the house, but she's obviously talking to people to find out where Boaz is going to be. So she set a target on Boaz, but Naomi knows that someone else is going to be the kinsman redeemer. So why don't you go after that man rather than going after Boaz? That's the question you have to answer, if that makes sense. I don't know if William's got a response to that, because you can see quite clearly.
Interesting. That's why.
So you say that she should break the rules and skip over because it makes it easier. Is that your argument? Or maybe Boaz had more money than the other kinsman redeemer.
Argument is that Boaz has already showed favor, and there is someone already fine, and I don't think he told them later that there's someone before.
Okay, so
let's not twist.
So your argument is don't even get Galaxy 10 involved. So your argument is that because Ruth is been playing a game with Boaz and trying to catch his eye, that they should break the rules. Is that your argument?
No, my argument was that Boaz has already showed in. when Naomi sees that, she remembers that our king, like my mum just said, they would have had a meeting with pointed. That was Boaz, so she's aware of it.
So yeah, I know that. Yeah, because remember, we know that Naomi knows Boaz, and she knows who's meant to come and save her. But she doesn't want the first kinsman redeemer. She wants the second kinsman redeemer because he's got more money, probably. And the king. Look at verse 2. It's so blatant. We know where this man's gonna be. Set a target on him and be like what's those missiles that like a homing missile that hones in on Boaz. And furthermore, don't. And then verse 3. Wash yourself. When you wash yourself, what happens? What does she want to do? What's that young lady earlier? What's her name? Kadeen. She said, West Croydon. She said that to wash yourself and anoint yourself, tart yourself up. That makes sense. As she said earlier, and I agree with Galaxy 10 on that point. So therefore, wash yourself and anoint yourself. What does anoint mean?
Perfume.
Put on sweet perfume, and then do what? And put on
beautify yourself.
Beautify yourself and put on your best dress. Why does she need to beautify herself, put on her best dress to go into the dirty threshing floor? I remember she puts lots of perfume on. As soon as she gets into the field, who can smell her? So no matter where she hides, the scent will wash so much that Boaz could smell her scent. If that makes sense. Yes? No? It would have been expensive perfume. It would have been cheap perfume. Does that make sense? Is that true, Mourinho? So she puts a scheme on to seduce Boaz. Any comments there, Mourinho?
I was talking to my mum about this, about when you're remember she's gone out, she's worked, she's done amazing things. Still is a grieving widow, and so maybe it was just encouragement in the right way to beautify. Which I agree.
Are you trying to justify it? Are you trying to justify her game?
I'm justifying Boaz's role.
Okay, well, so let's make it legitimately. First, Rover's got no money in the bank. Yes, yeah. So that Swiss's got no money in the bank, and Boaz has got money in the bank. What leverage has Ruth got? Youth and maybe her looks. And she may not even be the best looking woman in the room, but at the end of the day, Ruth says, I've got to leverage this so we can get you married off. Does that make sense? And Boaz is an old man, so he can't be too choosy. So if you put perfume and a nice dress on, I mean, that's half the game. Does that make sense?
Yes, I agree. Boaz has well, like, maybe you need to read maybe we should read the laws again, but it's a mandate that they have to or not. Like, he has to anyway. I agree in part. I agree halfway. She's met him halfway. She's met him halfway in terms of being visually attractive, which is important. And then he has to meet halfway with his full.
But what about this thing? Do not make yourself known to the man until he's finished getting drunk.
We've had a lengthy discussion about.
Do you think he is drunk then? So Naomi's coached her. I think someone said that Naomi's coached her. So I've been in and out. So Naomi's coached her to pounce him when he's drunk and he can't make the right decision. Let's end in prayer right there.
Okay, well, we want to end by saying it's a lot, but I think the scripture that and sometimes
to manipulate. You say she say manipulate. So to get that man the bag, what you're saying, get a nice dress, get perfume, have a plan, have a scheme.
She didn't do this to any man, you know. She didn't do it to every another man. She only did it to Boaz, the one that had the responsibility.
Technically, Boaz didn't have responsibility. He had the second responsibility.
She came in humility and act of by his feet. She didn't pounce
we're not there yet, but being by his feet, does that mean she sleeps with him? We'll pause there. So next week.
Comparison would be Lot's daughter. He didn't do what they did. He did something different.
He said light at his feet. I think that means, what does that mean then? But we'll do that next week.
I checked that out if it was a euphemism for sex, but it wasn't.
Okay then. So we'll press pause there. You better pray then.
Oh, okay. Well, Heavenly Father, we thank you for allowing us to have a great and Bible study with so much. I pray that the application about trusting that you've gotten about us, trusting that things that you go for them. I pray that great service. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Saints. We're going to take a quick 5-minute break and then we'll be back for main service. Amen. We're going to go a drink and we'll be back to you shortly. Thank you.